Mm. Okay, so before we start, let's try to warm up your engines with just a few random questions. Miss Chan, have you returned to work? I think that I have been asking you the same question every single week.
Um, so my students, my grade 9 students gonna start their school year next week. So on Monday, I'm gonna have to go back to work and teach them. But actually, for the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've been really busy because I have a lecture to deliver to almost 60 teachers in Long Biên district. And I
Okay,
have
hold on.
tests to design as well. So plenty
Mm,
of stuff to do.
that sounds prestigious. A lecture to deliver to 60 teachers in Long Biên. What was
Yeah,
that event? Was that a workshop?
yeah, kind of. So, um, so there is a tendency for school to build up ESL environment for their schools, for their students. They try to implement more English into their curriculum, things like that. So they I don't know how, but they contact an an English center, and that English center connect with other teachers in our schools, and they want
Mm,
us to deliver a speech on CLIL, which stands for content and language integrated learning.
okay. Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds very sophisticated. There was a bit of network at play there.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. And here I'm wondering why people have never really invited me to anything major. I don't have social connections. That's the problem. But perhaps that's for the better, right? Because I do have a tendency to turn down a lot of opportunities that were
Oh,
essentially handed to me.
mm.
Well, anyway, so perhaps this is my comeuppance, being isolated and alone.
But
Okay,
I think you have a lot of interaction with your students, right? I saw your videos, your stories almost every
I agree.
day.
I agree. I mean, you're part of this class, you know how I interact with you. And if you join in my one-on-one sessions, you'll
Mm-hmm.
find out that I'm all about, helping you make progress. And I will know more about you than you know about your own, strengths and weaknesses. So
Mm.
that's something that I take pride in. But at the same time, because I'm so invested in essentially all of these interactions, I have no energy for like doing things in my professional circles. I have none actually because I don't care, and I also don't reply to text messages.
Yeah, I can
So
see that.
so that's a problem, and I'm trying to get to grips with that. But I'm also keeping my fingers crossed like this that somewhere down the line I'll be able to recruit students just through word of mouth. I'm doing that right now, but it's not exactly, spreading like wildfire. I mean, the fire has
Mm-hmm.
been pretty, mild and dim.
Smile.
So lukewarm, lukewarm kind of fire. So I'm not exactly a household name yet, but I have my philosophy, and I hope I will have to change it. I won't have to change it.
And I think gradually your students gonna become your friends in real
Yes,
life, right?
yes, no, all of them have actually. Well, at the very least in science, like some of the kids I taught like 8 years ago are now, working in like different industries, and we become friends
Mm.
like that. So that's my
That's
relationships
fun.
with my
Yeah.
students. But you see, that is not a profitable kind of relationship. Perhaps somewhere down the line, once they have made a name for themselves and had a few businesses under their belt, they will probably give me a few billion a month. But for the time being, that's not gonna happen.
Not
They're
gonna
still trying
happen.
they're still trying to make ends meet and figure out, what they're gonna do with their lives. So it's gonna take a bit of time.
Hmm.
And I'm expecting more out of life at the moment. Like I'm missing a few $1 million in my bank account, and it's wearing me out. Okay, anyway, So today we're gonna do a bit of revision. I'm not quite sure who's gonna turn up. You see, I feel like this is a problem with like small size classes. I'm not complaining, by the way. I mean, this is not supposed to be a small size class. It's just that there are lots more students here, right? But like when you're on a roll and like oftentimes there are like 8 other people, you feel motivated, but then every once in a while, there's this wave of people gone missing or essentially just being absent from the same class, and it's gonna wear you out. I'm not quite sure it's gonna wear you out, but it's certainly you know grabbing my attention. So I'm gonna do my very best not to yell at anybody. But today is a revision session, and we're gonna go through some of the topics that we have already covered. And the purpose of this kind of revision session is for you to revise what you have already learned. And if you have ever taken the IELTS test with either the IDP or BC, you always get the same advice when it comes to improving your speaking skill, which is to do certain things again and again to make sure that you've got a really strong grasp of what you have talked about. Okay. So we're gonna, go over some of the content that we have covered in the past 2 weeks, which actually is a lot. Okay. Hello, Hoa. Hello, Wenting. So now in the first part, we're gonna do a bit of revision in speaking part 1. Now, essentially, in this particular part, I'm just gonna give you a bit of a hint with regard to, what kind of answer you should provide. And then you can just take the ball and run with it. And by that I mean you can improvise the rest, right? And after your improvisation section, we're gonna go through some of the possible answers and connect them with the right answer up here. Okay. So the purpose of this particular exercise is, first of all, I want to check your ability to extend your answers, right? You have to speak on cue, essentially, but there's a bit of an intro for you to buy yourself some time. And then we're going to do a bit of reflection on whether or not you have managed to use the words that you learned in this course, right? We're going to talk about that later on, but essentially there are 2 purposes. Number 1, I want to check your ability to extend your answers. Number 2, I want to check your ability to use some of the words you were taught. Now, don't focus excessively on the second goal here, because it's not the primary purpose of this activity. I really am more interested in your ability to extend your answers, right? It's just that, as part of a course, well, not a course, but this particular course, I also want you to have a bit of, reflection on your grasp of the things that you were taught. Okay, now, sorry, whoever that is highlighting this part, can you just jump out of my file? Thank you. Now let's talk about study here. Phương, please. How much time do you spend studying every week? I'll also make some notes, by the way.
Okay, let's see. Can I change it a bit? Like I'm a second year student, so I've
Sure.
got quite
Sure,
a
sure,
lot
sure,
on my
sure.
plate. I go to university like every single weekday, so it will be up to 20 hours. Just count the hours I spend at school. But I do study alone by myself in the library and in the study space too. So
Thank you.
I think
So is it better for you to study alone or in groups?
I think it depends. For
Hmm.
exam revisions, I feel like it's better to go it by myself. And just because I can concentrate when I'm alone, I always find a place where it's completely silent so I can focus on my documents and study, learn by heart all the exams tasks.
Hmm.
And
Thank you.
However,
Thank you.
okay.
We have another student in this building. You're still a student, right?
Yeah, not yes. I'm still student.
Okay, cool. Knock yourself out. So just read the first intro. Yeah, some of the sentences here. That's your intro, and then I'd like you to freestyle after, that part. How much time do you spend studying every week?
Let's see. I'm a third year student, so I've got quite a lot on my plate. I also do teach English every now and then. However, studying is one of the more important tasks. I spend around 10 to 15 hours daily in my university. That's why I'm I've been quite busy these days.
Thank
And
you. Is it better for you to study alone or in groups?
I think it depends. For exam revision, I feel like it's better to go a bit by myself, and it's just because I could I could concentrate more on the materials. However, whenever we got a huge group project, it is better to go outside and we just discuss openly about what we are going to do. That
Thank you.
is, yeah.
Lovely. So we're gonna press on. We have lots of exercises today, so everybody can have a chance at speaking, but of course, in different segments. We should not get bogged down here. Let's talk about work. Hua, please. How much time do you spend working every week?
I have never really thought about it. Someday I work around the clocks, but uh, in other hand, I usually work like when I have the mood, like typically I spend about 20 hours working each week.
Thank you. Do you often work from home or travel to work?
Well, it depends. I think that my job requires a bit of both. I mostly work remotely, which is pretty flexible. All I need is um all I need is like a nhưng mà em phải theo cái này đúng không anh? Em không được trả lời theo ý em đúng không?
Well, you can improvise after this part. All I need is what?
All I need is have a setup at my home like a laptop and some kind of a strong internet.
Okay, thank you. So that's the first exercise. I would say that Phương, your fluency was pretty nice. There was only one note here regarding the focus on my documents. It sounded a bit weird to my ears. So perhaps there was nothing wrong with it. I don't have any particular recommendation. I just felt like, it suddenly, stood out for no reason. As for Guanqing, you also had a very nice flow. I'm trying to be as congenial as I possibly can because we do have a lot of content to go through, and I feel like if I, go off the rail and criticize you guys, I won't be able to, get back on track. There was one mistake here. One of the most important tasks, you should add an S at the end, right? Plural form. Hua spent 20 hours. Make sure you add an S at the end, right? All I need is have a setup. Oftentimes, after all I need is, you should probably use a noun, right? All I need is a nice setup, or you say a nice workstation. I'm not quite sure about the setup though, because I'm not familiar with using it as a noun. Okay, so my recommendation is workstation. It's a nice workstation, right? But
Yeah.
if you want to use the word setup as a noun, make sure you double check it because I don't know how to use it as a noun. 9.0 and all that, but of course I don't know how to use setup as a noun. A nice workstation, okay? Now, hello, Hoa. We have a few, we have some of the original answers here. I'd like you to connect the dots and tell me which answer should be where. All right. You just need to give match. You don't need to read anything because this is not the point of the lesson. So let's start with Lee, please, the first one.
The first one is spent for how much time you spend for study.
So the first question right away. Right? That makes sense.
Work. I think it's for work, not for study.
But I do have classes in the morning. I have more classes, spend time studying. Right? So what the vocabulary here speaks more to the topic of education rather than work. Okay. Next then, down here, I can keep my eye on the ball, revising for the test.
For the second question.
Oh, all right. Oh, so apparently I haven't. Well, I did.
Yeah, you haven't mixed
mix
it up.
It's okay. Okay, it's okay. Now I'm gonna make things easier for you. That's all. Again, this is not the purpose, not the point of the exercise. Okay, thank you, Lee. Well then I'm still gonna put you to work, right? Lee, tell me, teaching classes from dusk to dawn, where does it go and why?
It's topic for work and how much time do you spend for work?
Good. Okay, that's a very nice summary, by the way. All right, I'm gonna distract you with compliments. And of course, the last bit here, a laptop and good Wi-Fi connection, and I'm set. So this is about which topic?
It's topic for work.
And it talks about
online work.
Working online, flexible working, actually. Okay, cool. So we've got the full version here, right? So for one question, in comparison to the original answers, how many or what is the percentage of compatibility? Like how many words were you able to use? Would you say 10%, 20%, or 0%, or 80%?
Wait a minute. I don't understand the question.
Okay, so you delivered your answers, and we have some answers here, right? But apparently you were not there during this particular lesson.
Yeah.
Oh, well then apparently I asked the wrong student. Well then,
so what?
when you compare,
you ask me that do I actually study about 30 hours a week?
No. So you had your answers, and these are the original answers for this particular topic. It's for this lesson here, 8-7. This is I got this from 8-7. Okay. So apparently you were not even there.
Oh, yes.
So I would say perhaps you did not, because you didn't learn anything from the script. So there's no point comparing. Let's say 0%. Right? There's nothing wrong with it. I should have asked someone else. And Quentin, were you there during this lesson?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well then, good. We have someone to compare to. Now, you had your answers. I've got mine. Now, from 0% to 100%, what would you say is the percentage of compatibility?
Honestly, I think the compatibility percentage is around 30 to 40%.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Well, I would disagree. I felt like your answers were completely different from mine, to be honest. So for me, it sounds more like a 10%. And I guess, a big part of that 10% came from the, the intro sentences. But that's okay. Next then, work. Hoa. Were you there during this class?
I think about like I just for the I saw that as the second question. My answer has just the first idea of the first sentence, maybe 10 or 5%. I don't know.
I would agree with that. So what exactly do these numbers tell you? Again, the original purpose of this exercise is to check your ability to extend your answers. So I think that Phương, you hit the nail on the head with regard to that particular goal. Quentin, you also did a good job. Why you did not exactly do a good job, but you managed to get through it, right? So that's for the first goal. The second goal here is checking your ability to use some of the words that you were taught. So Phương, well, apparently she's a non-factor here because she was not even a part of the class, but that's okay. Now, as for Quân here, I think that you kind of overestimated your grasp on the original material, and I think that's something that you need to be aware of. Because in like advanced classes, but I taught many students, all right, and they all seem to think that they have got like complete grasp of the things that I teach them, but when we really get down to it, apparently the numbers reflect a different result. As in your case here, you feel like you've got like a 40% grasp of the original answers. But honestly, when I listened to you, I couldn't recognize any of the, answers that I, taught you on that particular day. Right? It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a thing that you need to be aware of, because apparently it means that even though you are capable of, communicating in English, expressing your own thoughts, using your own words, apparently you haven't really learned anything from the material that was provided to you. Do you understand what I'm talking about here, Quân?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So personally, as let's say as a candidate myself, and well, sometimes I can be your examiner. To be honest, I don't care if you use my ideas or someone else's ideas. All I care about is whether or not you have an organic mastery of the speaking skill, right? So as long as you speak, that's fine for me. But of course, as the teacher of this particular course, I'm also interested in how much of the content of the course you have actually mastered. It's very different from just knowing things. If you want to say that you have mastered some of the things I've taught you, you actually have to demonstrate your mastery over the words and the grammar structures and everything in between, right? So unfortunately, when you got a really good percentage at the beginning, I would say that you were certainly able to speak at length. But in terms of like mastery of the content that you learned, 10%, 10%, right? Now, as for Hoa here, I think that you were very realistic. Dare I say you didn't remember anything, right? So what I'm trying to show you guys through this particular exercise is that, when you practice the speaking skill, there are two sides to it, or maybe multiple sides, but for the time being, I want to focus on only two aspects. First of all, you do have to improvise every once in a while. But sorry, I take that back. Not every once in a while. In most situations, you really have to, improvise. You have to speak your mind, and you have to extend your ideas in a way that is, organic to you, right? So you need to cultivate that skill by, practice speaking as much as you can. But then there's also the aspect of repeating what you have said to make sure that you've got a firm grasp of what you have learned. And I do that all the time. I know these words by heart. I might not be able to say the same thing again and again by virtue of writing new materials all the time. But I'm not lying to you when I say that when I do the test, if I hear familiar questions, I do not go off the beaten track. I stick with my script, and I pull myself together to pull myself through the test. All right. So try to repeat a bit more often. You don't need to borrow my ideas, but you need to learn something from somewhere, maybe yourself. All right. 10%. Right. That's a stab in the heart. Now let's move on with the second type of exercise. In this particular exercise, it's still speaking part 1, but what you have to do is rearranging the following fragments to form complete answers. So the focus of this exercise is on your, number 1, obviously, your ability to speak in chunks of words, right? And you have to connect the dots as well, as in like you have to think logically to make sure that your answer makes sense, okay? And of course, if you can do this exercise effortlessly, perhaps it also reflects that you have indeed learned something from, some of the scripts that I have delivered to you guys. Okay, now let's start with the first one. I want to give you about 10 seconds, maybe 2 minutes for the whole thing. Hold on here. Let me send you the file. Right, hop on. 2 minutes to do the whole thing, and then you can patch these fragments together. 2 minutes. Read the whole thing through. The first answer has already been given to you. The first sentence. I'm living in a small apartment with my mom. So on and so forth. Right? 2 minutes. Okay. Now let's start with Yung. The first one. I'm living in a small apartment with my mom.
I'm living in a small apartment with my mom. Even though the building is located next to a big road, it's slightly run down. But what's great about the building is it is surrounded by big and leafy trees. So so it's pretty peaceful, I'd say so. Can I change that a little bit?
What do you mean?
I think I should say the building is surrounded by big leafy trees, which help to block out the noise together. Yeah.
There should be 6,
Yeah.
7, and 8. I disagree. What is the original answer again? So I'm living in a small apartment with my mom. I would say so. Well, okay, if I'm not mistaken, but what's great about the building, it has, but what's great about the building, never mind, look, I'm not gonna test my luck. What is the original answer here again? All right, here. Oh, all right. Well, then apparently I got the wrong first answer. Sorry. Sorry, new amateur. All right, I would say so. I'm living in a small apartment with my mom. All right, good. And then it's slightly run down. So I think that this sentence does feel a bit out of place in your arrangement, Jung. Here. So I think it's better to say it's slightly run down. But what's great about the building is that it's surrounded by big leafy trees, which help to block out the noise. So it's pretty peaceful, even though the building is located next to a big road. All right, now Jung, can you cover it again? I would say so.
I'd say so. I'm living in a small apartment with my mom. It's slightly run down, but what's great about the building is that it's surrounded by big leafy trees, which help to block out the noise. So it's pretty peaceful, even though the building is located next to a big road.
Good. Well, this is what I always say when I'm given this question. Or the question about like, are you living in a house or an apartment? Always say the same thing. Next then, question number 2. Lee, please. This time around, I'm pretty sure this is the first sentence. Well, I would go with the former.
Next, in the past, I used to like study at noisy places
Continue.
because I often study with my friends. But as an
An adult.
adult, I find it really hard to concentrate. We would rendezvous at a popular coffee shop,
Rendezvous.
in the old quarter every week to revise.
Apparently, this is the last sentence, but that doesn't make any sense.
No, I at a popular coffee shop when there are other people chatting next to me. No. I find it really hard to concentrate when there are other people chatting next to me.
Seven, and this one will be 8. Okay. All right, let's see the original answer. Can't be bothered. Now, can you cover the real answer here? Well, I would go with the former.
Well, I would go with the former. In the past, I used to like studying at noisy places because I often study with my friends. We would rendezvous at a popular coffee shop.
Rendezvous.
Rendezvous. We would rendezvous at a popular coffee shop in the old quarter every week to revise. But as an adult, I find it really hard to concentrate when there are other people chatting next to me.
Okay, so you missed it by, should I say a mile? A mile is a bit too much. You miss something by a mile. It means that you miss it by a lot, a huge amount. But you only misarranged the last 2 sentences. But all right. So this is the original answer. But that does mean that you sort of screwed up in 50% of the answer. Well, okay, you see what you see. Let's continue. Chang, please. Now, what is this madness here? Chang, knock yourself out. Do you prefer to go to quiet or noisy areas in the evening?
I'd actually rather the latter. I tend to teach in the evening, so I don't get to spend time in crowded places that often. Whenever I have time off in the evening, I always go to a big shopping mall or a nice restaurant. You see, the comings and goings of people make me feel like I'm part of the fun city life as well.
That was too smooth. I could barely keep up. Right. That sounds legit. I'd like you to cover the original answer. I would actually rather the latter. Chang, read it out loud, please. Actually rather.
I'd actually rather the latter. You see, I tend to teach in the evening, so I don't get to spend time in crowded places that often. Whenever I have time off in the evening, I always go to a big shopping mall or a nice restaurant. The comings and goings of people making me feel like I'm part of the fun city life as well.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head this time around. Kudos to you. Isn't this one of those like diabolical question types that you get in the university entrance examination, where you have to patch different fragments of of a spoken answer together to make things make sense?
Mm, For the high school entrance exam, they have this kind of exercises as well. Usually, they're gonna give out the first two sentences and then three other sentences for you to rearrange. And the upcoming question would be the last sentence of that part. Yeah.
Oh wow, check me out. I'm not even working in the public system and I know a thing or two about designing exercises. Kudos to me, not just an MT 9.0 airheaded person. All right, let's continue. Who's next? Please. Yeah, I want to embarrass the hell out of you.
I don't know for a fact, young people probably enjoy it because they might find this environment dynamic and fun, whereas older adults might appreciate somewhere more peaceful so that they can rest, especially after a hard day of work.
Oh wow, I think that you got it. Well, you did butcher this word here. It's adults,
Adults.
not a dog. Adults, or you can say adults.
Adult.
Not quite there. Adults
Adult.
or adults. So you or but then adults. So that's more like it's an adults. One more time.
Adults.
Okay, cool. Oh wow. I cannot believe I'm actually saying this, but I'm so proud of you. I was planning to throw you under the bus, and then I would try to make, a snide remark about the fact that you have no clue what's going on in this class. But well, this time around you managed to, turn the table around. That was nice. Okay, good. So, this exercise apparently is a very common test question type in high school entrance exams, right? So I do know a thing or two about the education system. And what you should, get from this particular exercise is that, like when you speak or when you learn from sample answers, try to pick out phrases and chunks of words that naturally go together, right? I feel like I'm starting to sound like a broken record at this point, but that's something that I always have to say. Like when you're like learning how to speak, of course you start with one or two words at a time, but then what's more important is that you don't miss the forest for the trees, and especially at your level, you definitely need to learn to speak in chunks of words instead of just one or two fancy words at a time. All right. So the bigger picture here is learning chunks of words, right? So that's the purpose of this exercise. Like when you go through each chunk, you have to, deliver the whole thing in just one breath. But what's great about the building, right, is the fact that it's surrounded by big leafy trees, which help to block out the noise. Hold on, not quite sure if that's the correct answer. Oh yeah, but what's great about the building is that it's surrounded by big leafy trees, which help to block out the noise. So it's pretty peaceful, even though the building itself is located next to a big road, right? You also have to plan your exit as you speak, because sometimes, like if you're already running on empty and you want to end your answer, you have to go down, right? And stretch the words out instead of just going up and up and up and up. Okay. So based on this result, I think that I did mess you up for choosing the wrong sentence to start with, but you did do a fair share of messing things up. So work on that. For Lee here, you certainly were able to patch sentences together to form meaningful bits, but you still missed like 50% of this answer. So work on that as well. Chang, good job. And Hua, surprisingly, good job. All right, let's move on. That should be it for the first part. Any question thus far? Wenting, any question?
I got no question at all.
So no question?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's move on to the next part. Now this is where things might get really rough. Okay. So I have been telling you about, the ability to use certain ideas in different contexts, all right? And I'm speaking from experience. I mean, when you prepare for your, speaking part 2 topics, if you use the forecast, then you probably have like, 10 or 20 or 50 different topics. And I would say there's nothing wrong with preparing a different answer to each of these topics. And there's also nothing wrong with trying to group topics, before you actually hammer out a script or a specific approach. But I would say that the problem with the latter is that, when you group topics, you might end up creating something that's really patchy, right? So my advice is that instead of, trying to group topics together, you should answer, one of the topics in a very natural way. And then you can take some of the elements from that particular script and put them in a different topic, right? So what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna go through the script again, and we'll see which ideas in this given script about Ảnh Viên, someone who I know next to nothing about, which ideas in this given script can be used in the following topics. All right, and this is gonna be a hard section. But well, I've already given you a heads up, so let's rock and roll. Guanting, please, I'd like you to breathe some life into the first 2 parts, and then Phương, these 2 parts. Guanting first. I'd like to talk about
Ảnh Viên, a very famous swimmer here in Vietnam. Shows she is a professional athlete, and swimming is practically what has put her on the map. That year, she competed in a few competitions, and it's safe to say she mopped the floor with everyone else. Earlier this year, she was nominated for several awards and also took home all the prizes. So I first got to know about Ảnh Viên a couple of years ago. She was a swimming prodigy that suddenly got a lot of exposure. I saw her on the internet many times, and came to see some of her videos on TikTok. The videos were really entertaining, since they show very interesting tips and tricks for people to improve their swimming skill, and I was trying to learn how to tread water.
Okay, let's continue. Phương, moving on to
Moving on to what she has done, Anh Viên is a professional athlete, so she trains a lot and competes in tournaments every once in a while. As far as I'm concerned, she has already scaled the heights and has nothing left to prove. But she keeps it going, swimming and competing. What I find very inspiring about Anh Viên is that, although she has achieved so much, far more than what I have managed to accomplish thus far, she still has it down to earth personality. She's rich, but doesn't come across as someone obnoxious. In her interviews, she's very well-spoken and humble. She addresses elder people politely and jokes very often. She can brag about achievements, but from time to time, but it's mostly tongue-in-cheek.
One question, Feng, were you there during this class?
During the class about this,
This script?
or oh, no, I didn't.
You were not there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, what is tongue-in-cheek?
Kidding, jokingly. It's mostly, joking. It's tongue in cheek. It's an
Oh,
idiom.
thank you.
Okay. Well, right. So there's a script about Anh Viên. Let's talk about which of the given ideas can be used in the following topics. Now, do you think that you can use these ideas to talk about someone who expresses their feelings very well? And I'd like you to give it a try. Give it a try. Now, let's start with Nhung, please. Describe someone who expresses their feelings really well. So the idea is that, okay, we have the script about Anh Viên. Do you think that you can use the entire script to talk about someone who expresses their feelings well? Or maybe just 50% of it?
Yeah, maybe 15%. You mean 50?
15?
Like, I don't really see the part of expressing feelings much here, but I think I can adapt.
Okay, sure. Prove it. Prove
Mm,
it.
like maybe she can be an ambitious person.
Mm.
Because she is famous, she is a very talented athlete.
Hold on, sorry. No, that's not what I'm talking about. So you want to adapt this. So let's say the topic here is about someone who expresses their feelings very well. So you're gonna make adjustments somewhere along the script, right? But then where would you make changes?
I think like at the end of the first paragraph.
Sure, let's have a go at it. Now, I'd like you to describe someone who expresses their feelings well. Just go from here to here, and then you can say something about Anh Viên being a very emotionally expressive person. Come on, I like to talk about.
I'd like to talk about Anh being a very famous swimmer here in Vietnam. So she's a professional athlete, and swimming is practically what has put her on the map. Last year, she competed a few competitions, and it's safe to say she mopped the floor with everyone else. So earlier this year, she was nominated for several awards and also took home all the prizes. And something like maybe after got those awards, like she was very welcome to share maybe her tips, her feelings about competition. Meanwhile, other athletes that I haven't known before, like don't really express their feelings in that way because kind of they are afraid maybe some negative comments like comments about their petition or kind of unsuitable attitudes. But Envy like wasn't afraid anything about that kind of.
Okay, cool. I thought that was a very nice approach. So essentially, you're gonna go through this entire thing, right? And then you talked about her emotions and the way that she expressed her emotions when winning all these prizes, right? You can say that, yeah, she was practically jumping for joy, which was, very endearing and refreshing to see, right? Because, usually when it comes to like award ceremonies, like most celebrities and, winners of these awards tend to just keep a stiff upper lip about their emotions, and they just try to navigate the event in a very neutral way. But Anh Viên was always willing to show her true colors, right? She was very happy, and she talked about how happy she was, and I like the fact that she was so candid about it, right? Good. So after that, do you think that you can use the rest of the script here?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Like maybe I can talk about the reason why she could be that happy. So we'll talk about her experience. Yeah, kind of that.
Okay. Well, I would say that apparently you can use up to 100% of this particular script. Although you do have to insert 1 or 2 comments regarding her emotional expressions, right? Got it? So it's not 15%, darling. It's more like 100% with comments on her emotional, not emotional damage, emotional expressions. And guess what? Well, I did the test with IDP, not a few days, but roughly 2 weeks ago, and I did the same thing. I also talked about Anh Viên, and the question for me was exactly this question: describe someone who expresses their feelings well. So I was talking about Anh Viên and the fact that she was emotionally very expressive, right? Okay, so the whole thing actually, the whole thing. Next, then, describe a time when you search. Let me type that down again. So something like this. And when she got the award, she was practically, when she got the first award, she was practically jumping for joy, quite literally, right? Which was so endearing and refreshing to see. Like when it comes to award ceremonies, celebrities and winners in general tend to be very neutral about it. They refrain themselves from showing too much emotion, but Anh Viên was totally candid about it. She talked about how happy and how grateful she was, and I appreciated her honesty, right? So, and then you can, after that, once you have driven home the message that, yep, this lady is very expressive, you can just press on with the rest of the script here. And then somewhere along the line, you can also make comments about the fact that in her videos, she is also very expressive. Like she jokes around all the time, and like she's not afraid of putting on like a dazzling smile, right? And she laughs really loud as well. She laughs loudly as well, right? Got it, got it. Nhung, got it.
Yes.
So this is 100% actually. Next then, describe a time when you searched for information on the internet. Chang, what do you think?
Search for information on the internet. Probably we can talk about learning how to swim probably, and one of the skills is treading water, and you went onto the internet and saw Anh Vien's video teaching that skill.
Okay, cool. Now let's give it a try here. Describe a time when you searched for information on the internet. I like to talk about the time. You can freestyle it until the part where Anh Viên enters the picture.
Yeah, all right.
The question here is
Well,
describe a time when you searched.
mm, so a couple of years ago, I was learning how to swim properly, and one of the skills that I struggled quite a lot back then was with treading water. So I knew the basic techniques, but I couldn't seem to do it perfectly. So I decided to go online and look for some tips. And while I was searching for that, I came across a video of Anh Viên, who is a famous Vietnamese swimmer. And at first, I was just curious about her competitions, but then I found that she posted some short videos on TikTok with practical swimming tips and tricks. And I think these videos were not only entertaining but also informative and very useful for me.
Okay, that should be it then. I'm pretty sure that after that you would be able to, go on and talk about Anh Viên, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, I would say yes, perhaps 20%. 20%. But do you think that you can go like 100% with this particular script?
Mm.
By the
Probably
way,
the first two is relatable.
okay, then you can bump it to 40%, but still not 100%.
I feel like that.
Okay. Well, not to be weird about it, but well, I got this topic also. Again, look, I had nowhere to be during the summer, right? So I went to the UK and Australia on a regular basis. You know what that means? Chang, do you know what that means? Traveling to the UK and Australia on a regular basis.
Sorry, just could you please repeat that?
Well, I was trying to make a joke, so I said that I had nowhere to be this summer, so I just traveled to the UK and Australia on a regular basis.
Bye.
Do you know what that means?
By actually going online and being
No.
a armchair traveler or something?
No. So here's a hint. I was also given this topic once. Okay, so essentially what I'm trying to say is that this summer I did the IELTS test with both BC and IDP, BC for the UK
right.
and IDP for Australia on a regular basis. And I kid
Like
you
in
not.
a month?
Yes.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I kid you not. I specifically made a point to talk about Anh Viên even for this topic.
Twice?
There are two different topics. The first one, right? So I got this topic once and I got this topic once. So for this topic, I also talked about Anh Viên. And I was talking about the fact that, I was also searching for information on the internet to essentially my answer was that I was very keen on learning how to swim, right? I also talked about learning treading water. Good. So we're like we're thinking alike here. And then I sort of trailed off by talking about what captivated me. Right? So this part here. Here. So, what captivated me was the fact that, in her videos, she did not come across as obnoxious. She was very well spoken. And, every once in a while, she would, plug in a few, brags about her achievements from time to time. But I found what she said very entertaining because it was mostly tongue in cheek, right? That's the first bit. And then I also finished everything by saying that, I think that her tips really worked. But I guess, that made sense. That makes sense because, she is a professional athlete, and she competes very often, and like she has scaled the heights and has nothing left to prove. But the lady still keeps it going, swimming and competing and putting out videos for
right.
viewers to see. So my approach was very similar to yours at the beginning, but then instead of focusing on
The video.
focusing entirely on this information thing, I would talk more about the fact that I was captivated by her, and every once in a while I would say something like, yeah, my swimming skills did improve, and it makes sense because Anh Viên was a top-notch athlete, and she blew everyone else completely out of the water when she was competing against them, right? So for me, it's not 100%, but perhaps 70%. Right? Okay, cool.
All right.
Thank you. Let's move on then. So what I'm trying to say here is that you can talk about swimming, and then can say something like treading water, right? And then I saw Anh Viên videos. And then you can talk about the fact that your impression of her in her videos, something like, she was very down to earth, and she got a funny bone. Like every once in a while, she would brag about her achievements, but I found it very entertaining because it was all tongue in cheek. And then we'll talk about the fact that I thought that her tips really worked, right? And I guess it makes sense. It makes sense because she was, again, you talk about how great she is as an athlete because she knows her craft. She is like the top athlete here in Vietnam. And then you go on and on and on to talk about how amazing she is as a swimmer, right? She essentially mopped the floor. Like earlier this year, she competed and mopped the floor with everyone else. And then you can also talk about the fact that, you recognize the fact that you two have like completely different career paths. Like she has scaled the heights, right? As far as I'm concerned. Okay, so 70%. And you know what? You can actually push it all the way to 100% if you want to say something like, well, yeah, I had to do a presentation on an athlete in Vietnam, right? That's going to give you 100%. So as you can see, what I'm trying to say here is that when it comes to, speaking part 2 and a good chunk of speaking part 1 topics, sometimes it's all about perspective, and you should try to diversify your uses of certain ideas because they can be used in various topics. Okay, now the last question here. Describe after this, we're going to have a small break. Now, describe an advertisement that you saw. This is a really hard one. Lee, please, what can you say about this topic using the ideas from this script here? I'm really picking your brains with this one.
Well, I think about 90% with
Really?
90%.
Okay.
And I will comment first about the advertisement I see about Anh is that she gave many awards for Vietnam. And after that, I can talk all the script about
Sorry,
Anh Viên.
the original, I forgot a detail here. Describe an advertisement for a popular product. Yeah, that would be the original topic.
Popular products. Okay, so I think it should be 50%, maybe
Only 50? Okay.
50. I can see the advertisement for phao, em không biết tiếng Anh từ đấy.
A boy. I don't
and
know what it is.
and Ảnh Viên is the famous person who advertised for this product.
Okay, cool. Perhaps not something that you don't know the name of. Let's talk about something else then. How about goggles? Swimming goggles, right? Or swimming suits. Right. Okay, cool. So how do you plan to incorporate the description of Ảnh Viên into this particular answer?
Well, I think the swimming suit of the brand that Ảnh Viên wear is the suit that she won the prize for Vietnam, and that also the advertisement, and I saw an advertisement, so I also want to try that the same products like a famous person.
Okay, sure. Fine. So you've been talking about a swimsuit, but then I really want to know how you can incorporate any part of this script into, your answer regarding the advertisement. So give me a full answer, actually. Give me a full answer. Like, I'm going to talk about, the topic here is, let me put that up here. I want to talk about what? Here, tell me. I'm going to talk about an ad for.
I'm talking about the swimsuit that Ảnh Viên is advised, and Ảnh Viên is a person. I'm talking about the swimsuit that Ảnh Viên is also.
Not the product. It's an advertisement. So you can start by saying, well, I'm going to talk about an ad for swimming goggles or swimming suits.
I'm talking about the swimming suit.
No. I'm going to talk about an ad, not the product.
Okay, I'm sorry. I talk about the ads that well known for swimming suits. That swimming suit is wear by Ảnh Viên, a very famous swimmer here in Vietnam. So she's a professional athlete, and swimming is practically what has put her on the map. So last year, when I first saw the advertisement about Ảnh Viên, I saw her on the internet many times. I saw her advertisement on the internet many times and came to see some of her videos on TikTok. On that videos, she wear a swimsuit that would have very colorful, and on the advertisement, she also give us some tips and tricks for people to improve their swimming skill. And I also try and also learned many tips about how to treat in water in the videos.
Okay, let's stop here. It's kind of off the rail. Well, the first bit was, well, still a bit patchy. So look, what I'm trying to say is that your direction is correct. It's just that you need to work on your delivery. That was a bit. I would want. Essentially, you need to work on your delivery, right? Not that fluent yet. Okay, so I agree here. So for this particular topic, like if your back is against the wall, you can say something like, well, I'm going to tell you about an ad for swimming goggles. And you can talk about swimming in general first, right? Something about like, here in Vietnam, swimming is a very popular activity. And a lot of people, go swimming while wearing goggles to protect their eyes. So obviously a lot of them, buy goggles or at least they'll rent these things when they go swimming. And like the other day I saw an ad for this particular product, and what struck a chord with me was the fact that it actually featured ảnh viên, right? That's where you drag ảnh viên in. You do have to talk a little bit about the popularity or necessity of this particular product, right? So yeah, so this what really struck a chord with me about this particular ad was the fact that it actually featured Anh Viên, a very famous swimmer here in Vietnam. Like, swimming is practically what has put her on the map. And in this particular ad, you see, the problem here is that you still have to talk about the ad. So you can say something like, well, and in this particular ad, there were scenes of her competing in a few competitions in which, of course, she mopped the floor with everyone else. And then, there were a couple of scenes in which, she was, nominated for several awards and, of course, she took home all the prizes. But essentially, this ad really drove home the message that, the goggles that were being advertised were worn by the best of the best. You understand that part? Okay, so I think the answer here is, let's talk with swimming in general, right? And the fact that people do buy swimming goggles. And then you can talk about the fact that it did feature Anh Viên, a famous swimmer, right? And then there were some scenes. You need to describe the ad, not Anh Viên, the athlete. So you have to say the ad, feature in the ad. There were a couple of scenes of her competing, right, in tournaments. And then, of course, she mopped the floor with everyone else. And then there was this moment of her getting awards, right, for her outstanding performance. And she got, and it was from a ceremony when she took home all the prizes. So the message was that, the product was worn by the best of the best, right? Okay, got it. After that, though, you still have to talk more about, this particular ad, or perhaps Anh Viên, but you have to be very, very, how should I say this? Like you need to deliver in a natural way, and that can be a problem. So I actually got this question as well. Again, I've been traveling to the UK and Australia, and I got this topic once, and I sort of went off the beaten track to talk about iPhone. I'm not quite sure how fluent you are when it comes to talking about electronic stuff, but like I'm not a technophile. I don't care about smart devices. I can probably write essays about them, but I don't actually describe electronic products that well. But on that particular day, I decided to put my luck to the test, and I absolutely bombed that particular segment, and then I proceeded to bomb speaking part 3 as well. Do you remember that I've been telling you that in speaking part 3, you should not list things out? Do you remember that? Chang, do you remember that? In speaking part 3, you should not list things out?
Yep. Try to explain your answer.
Yes, guess when I learned that from? That test. I bombed both speaking part 2 and part 3. Because in speaking part 3, the examiner asked me something like, well, where can you find advertisements in Vietnam, and then I start listing out the places instead of discussing, what type of advertisement you can find in certain locations, right?
Was that long ago?
No, in this summer. In this
Oh,
summer.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I told you I had nowhere to be. So like originally I had already saved up a certain amount of money for actual traveling. I wanted to get out and about and be part of this world, right? But then most of my friends decided to bomb that plan because they had other commitments. And so I had this amount of money, which I had no idea what to spend on. So I took tests. Okay. But well, I guess I did walk away from some of these tests with horrible results, by the way. It really knocked the wind out of me. But then I also learned lessons, which I'm sharing with you right now. Right? Isn't that a good sign of a dedicated teacher? Right. Okay, good. What I'm trying to tell you is that like when you have a script that you know very well how to use, it can be my script, your script, someone else's script, that's fine. You should try to incorporate some of the ideas in multiple contexts. And sometimes it does require you to go out of your way to plug ideas in different topics, right? But then I think that's the only way for you to actually improve your versatility. Because if you have to come up with something new and original, whenever you're given a topic, I feel like it's going to be very challenging. And take it from me, I mean, I've done the tests, I've done the IELTS test more than a few times, and as you can tell, I can clearly speak English with a high level of accuracy, right, and fluency. But then, if I choose the wrong direction, I feel like in exam conditions, that's gonna cost me a lot of marks. Right? Yeah. So all I'm trying to say is that the purpose of this exercise is for you to, first of all, try to actually master a script. And then, try to like fit the script in as many contexts as you can. Sometimes you can only take, let's say, 20% of the script, sometimes 50%, sometimes 100%, right? But you have to actually practice to familiarize yourself with this method. Okay, any question thus far in this particular segment?
I have one question.
Yes.
Can you describe the product as a swimming class? I think it's
That's an
pretty good.
unconventional take on the topic, but that's okay. I think that's
Yeah. You can
accepted.
say that it's because it's summer, so a lot of people want to swim. So yeah, it's a popular product these days. And the teacher is a very famous, blah blah.
Okay, sure. In that case, well, I just to say that it didn't register with me right away, right? But I feel like it's accepted. To be honest, if I were given this topic again, I would not talk about swimming. I would talk about a chemistry book, right? Because I know a lot about chemistry and I know a lot about teachers. So, if I could turn back time, I would have talked about, a book and, the advertisement for that particular book, right? Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that I'm gonna stay in my lane and play to my strengths instead of, stepping out of my comfort zone and put my luck to the test. That's not a wise decision when you're doing a test. Okay, good. Any other question? One tick.
Well, I think my question is, I want to apply, an idea into a special advertisement about Indian. I think my idea is about advertisement about TikTok. TikTok, but you can see that TikTok somehow they demonstrate famous people on their advertisement. You have
Sure,
seen.
TikTok ads do feature famous
Yeah.
people.
So I can link it to Anh Viên. So she will be, you know, on that TikTok ad talking about.
For what product?
Yeah. I mean TikTok, that TikTok advertisement. It's not about what product. And
Oh, so that advertisement is for TikTok.
yeah, or the app itself. It's not for the
Hmm.
product, or not for any products.
Okay, well then I think it's accepted. Again, a very unconventional take on this topic, but I think it's sensible. I'm still a bit dubious about the advertisement of a class as a product. It's more like a service.
It's not about class. Like,
But yeah,
I
for
want.
an app, I agree. Okay. You have to practice, that's all. Now, okay, I'm gonna go back on my words and resume this class because we have already gained a certain momentum. Now let's talk about developing your ideas. So I think that last week I already put a lot of you through hell by breaking your rhythm in speaking part 3. And that's something that I'm gonna continue doing this week. So essentially, you guys can let's say read the following responses at each break. Try to think of a question to discuss the point and then answer it, or maybe I can answer it, and then I can ask you this question so that you can answer it. Yeah, the instruction is pretty clear. Now so you can ask me a question or I can ask you. I would definitely ask you afterwards, but then you can ask me a question. I'll try to engage in your discussion, or maybe I can, throw this missile at someone else. Yeah. So someone else will answer this. Okay. Let's start. Now, Lee, please, can you read this part here? What qualities make someone a good leader? Just read, and then at this point, you can ask a question regarding this part here. Or maybe, hold on, let me read it for you. Why am I changing my mind so much today? Read. What qualities make someone a good leader?
I suppose there are various elements to good leadership. At the forefront, I would say that having a vision is crucial. For instance, in a company, oftentimes directors and executives are those who outline business plans, negotiating terms with potential partners, and deciding how budgets would be spent to achieve business goals. So, having a vision and being capable of leveraging trends and strategic partnerships are important for the companies to thrive.
Good. So what question can you ask, from this particular script?
So how companies, how leadership can give the specific strategic partnerships for the company.
So you're saying that how can these
how
leaders,
how leadership can
leadership is the skill.
yeah how this leader can give specific strategic partnerships for their company.
How can these leaders gain strategic partnerships? Strangely specific. Okay, sure. Now, I'm gonna throw someone on the bus here. The question is, as you can see, an instrumental quality of a good leader is the ability to form strategic partnerships, which are important for companies to thrive. But then how can leaders gain these so-called strategic partnerships? Nhung, please.
Well, I think good leaders also need to understand their own company's branding or strategy in general. So it depends on the strategies of that company. For example, they prefer to be really polite, approachable when they kind of have a partnership with others. So leaders should follow in that way. Like maybe, or in some different cases, they just want to build partnerships in a very professional way, like not kind of casual or really friendly, just be formal and professional in general. So leaders also need to follow that. I mean, they
Okay.
set the strategies themselves, but follow the company.
Lee, one question. Do you think that her answer made sense?
I think her answer is just gift about the general what this means strategic partnership, but not give the specific action of leader.
Okay, so you want to hear more verbs. Like what exactly can leaders do? Right, more verbs. What do they do? Well then, sure, you address the question. What can they do to gain strategic partnerships?
I think when talking about strategies, it's kind of tough to know exactly what they should do. Actually, just like in my opinion, as long as like they must be in that company to understand the strategy. So to me, one thing that they can do is understand.
Sorry, it's not about strategies. It's about strategic partnerships. So like a company may have like business deals with, other companies or other individuals, right? For instance, a company that is selling, let's say, a particular type of food may seek endorsement from a very famous celebrity, right? And like the popularity of that particular famous individual can propel this product to the top of the list, on Shopee or other online shopping sites. But then how can the leader of that company choose which like celebrity to work with?
Okay, I get that.
Mm.
But actually, my answer is kind of the same. They need to know their company style first.
Sure, fine. Yeah, so they've already got very unique insights with regard to what their company's value is. Outside of that, how can they form like a strategic partnership?
This kind of social skills in general. Yeah, for any
What do they do?
kind of communicate like cleverly, or maybe
What do you mean by that?
kind of reach those celebrities or reach those partners in a kind of strategic way. Like they should how to say, set such like a list of actions, like what should they do first and then second, like how to approach those people, and then what kind of conversation that we should have later, kind of that.
Lee, are you satisfied with her answer?
Yes.
Really?
But she can talk or give an example about communication skills, or the leaders can negotiate or negotiate with their partners to make a decision about that deal.
Exactly. I'm on the same page as you are. To be honest, I completely I was not satisfied with your answer at all. But then again, it's a hard question. It's just that, for certain questions, examiners do feel like, there are different ways to answer their questions instead of just saying, I don't know, and, give something that is give an answer that is really vague, right? I agree with what Lee has said here. When it comes to forming strategic partnerships, first of all, you definitely need to know, who you're going to work with. So you need to do a bit of digging, right? You need to gather some information about, whether the company that you're trying to work with is a successful one, and whether, what they do is actually legal, and you also need to find out about their credibility, right? So you do some background information checking, and then you can organize meetings with them to discuss the terms before hammering out, let's say, a contract that is protected by the laws, right? And then you also have to work out, how to divide profits, and what's going to happen when, one party decides to, part ways, from the partnership, So, like, for questions like this, I agree with Lee completely. You do have to present specific actions instead of, just say not random, but general things that are really, like, difficult to grasp. Okay? Nyung got it?
Yes.
Okay, let's continue. So we stopped here. At the forefront, I would say that having a vision is crucial. For instance, in a company, oftentimes directors and executives are those who. Fung, can you read this part again? I want to ask you a question.
Okay, at the forefront, I'd say that having a vision is crucial. For instance, in a company, oftentimes directors and executives are those who outline business plans, negotiating terms with potential partners, and deciding how budgets should be spent to achieve business goals. So having a vision and being capable of leveraging
Leveraging.
leveraging trends and strategic partnerships are important for the companies to thrive.
But then, does that mean that only individuals with interesting goals can become leaders?
Well, I don't think so. First of all, I don't think that there's someone that have boring goals. I think everyone have their own interesting goals, but I think we can say here is that the leaders have the same goal which with the community or the society, so that they can be a leader. They can you know what I mean? And becoming a leader do require more than just an interesting goal. So I think one person
So what else?
with
Sorry. So what else is required outside of, just having a vision or, goals that are considered to be, profitable?
I think one important factor is the ability to lead people. Like she is the leader, so the very important personality is that he or she can lead people, make them feel like they want to follow the her or his decisions like that.
Sorry. Then how can you improve that particular aspect of leadership? Because aren't you just saying that, a good leader is someone who knows how to lead, which is pretty much something that's already given?
Well, I think okay, can you repeat like you want me to say that what a leader have to do, or what personalities do they have? Do they
Well,
have?
my question is more about, like, okay, so outside of having, interesting, fascinating goals that can actually, take a business off the ground, what is needed, for effective leadership? Of course, you need to be able to lead people, but what does that mean? How can that be done? How can you lead people in an effective way?
Well, to be honest, I do not very good at being a leader, but as far as I'm concerned, I think that a good leader will be a good speaker, a good presenter, and a good listener. Like the way he or she speaks really inspired people, the members of the team, and make them want to follow and want to continue with the goals that
Thank you.
he or she
Right.
set.
So that's, for me, that was what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear what Lee wanted to hear, with her, question. So for this particular question, well, not this particular one, but the extended question, I really wanted you to give me some verbs, right? What can they do? They need to speak eloquently, right? So that they can persuade other team members to commit to the same goal, right? Their speeches should be inspiring, and they can slide in a few jokes here and there. I don't mind, when I don't mind it when leaders try to get a bit tongue in cheek with what they say, but essentially the way that they deliver their messages should be very convincing, right? Good. They should also be good listeners. Like they should be able to extract information from what people are telling them. I agree, but it's just that I wanted to hear more actions. Okay, let's continue. We're gonna jump straight to the question, to the last one. Gwen, please read. Why do people admire others? And then I'm gonna ask you questions.
You are really picking my brain with this ones. My guess is that a lot of us can really like the life that we aspire
Live
to.
the life. Live the life.
Really live the life that we aspire to, like living in a big mansion with fancy car or having millions of dollars at our fingertips. So we look up to people that can afford these things.
But then, do you think that admiring these wildly successful individuals is actually a good thing to do?
Well, I think it depends on who do you choose to admire. I think I saw a lot of rich people choose to, pursue or do a bad thing in order to gain illegal monies to buy a luxurious item, and they try to flex the item on the social media. That I think is very detrimental
Sure,
to
but then
influencer.
thank you. But then what kinds of successful individuals should people look up to?
Well, I mean, everyone, I think everyone who earn their money legally, and they just show off their money in a legal way, like they don't resort to illegal action in order to gain a big amount of money.
Not satisfied with that answer. Well, I would have wanted to hear something, I don't know, more specific.
More specific? Wow, I think
Successful individuals that we should look up to.
Like I think successful individual that we would like to look up to is that someone who not only successful in terms of financially and on someone who
Financial
not only,
terms.
in financial terms, but they're also successful in other domain of their life. For
Such
example,
as?
like Hoàng Nam Tiến, which is the CEO of FPT. So he's obviously he's a very rich leader. However, he choose to share his knowledge and his compassion with books and cast on social media in order to affect in order to share meaningful quotes and to share his idea and with youngster, which I found is very beneficial, even more beneficial.
Okay, fine. Got it. I thought that the example did clear things up a little bit, but I do have to say that you were very inaccurate in most of the things that you were saying. And you were adding random s's, like however, instead of saying however, you say howevers. right? And then you would like pace your, how should I say this? You would pace your thoughts not so fluently. Yeah, that's all. So what I'm trying to say is that your idea, well, for the second time you answer the question, your ideas made more sense, but your delivery wasn't that great. So yeah, your accuracy sort of, dropped dramatically when you actually, started thinking more about what you wanted to say to actually address the question. Understand? The accuracy was actually very low. That's all. The content makes sense. So for me, like what I'm trying to say here is that for you, it's like it's either or. It's either a very fluent answer that does not mean much, or a meaningful answer that is very inaccurate in terms of word choices and grammar rules. Right? If you want to get to a higher level, I do think that you need to essentially take out both of these boxes at the same time. You need to formulate sensible ideas while using accurate words and grammar. And there's certain words that you should not mess up, like however. No one ever said however's, right? So I think it's more or less a problem of your language reflexes. Yeah, perhaps you need more practice with, these like completely off the cuff questions. Yeah, because I feel like your accuracy is kind of like out the window, is thrown out the window the moment you try to actually speak in an organic way. That's all. All right, well then that should be it for today. So what I'm trying to say through this particular exercise, look, we've got a few exercises in today's lesson. In speaking part 2, let me run things down here. In speaking part 1, the first exercise was to check your natural ability to extend your answers in speaking part 1. And your answers should also tell you, what percentage of the original content you actually managed to truly learn and master and apply, right? 10%. It's not exactly a surprising number because even when it comes to writing, this when I, correct your essays and ask you to write them again, you still manage to miss all the marks, right? So that's not a big deal. But then if you want to actually improve, my advice would be for you to actually take into consideration my recommendations, like my sample answers, my notes, my comments, and actually incorporate them into your answers. I don't want to sound like a bitter person, but I've worked with teachers and students before, and I noticed that those who are more willing to actually learn and apply tend to have a better chance at improving their IELTS score, right? Just 10% or 5%, people, not a huge number. The second exercise is more about, thinking and speaking in chunks of words. This is something that you should try to extract from sample answers, right? Instead of just learning one word at a time, learn the whole thing. But what's great about the building, even though the building is located next to a big road, it's still very quiet and peaceful because, it's surrounded by lots of trees with, lots of leaves, right? Learn chunks of words. For speaking part 2 here, the point is to try to, use certain ideas in multiple contexts. And I do think that, this is a really advanced skill, but it's one that, advanced English users use all the time in the form of essentially telling the same story in like different situations, right? and use like the same idioms and phrases in different topics. For instance, you can say, well, the trip was, you can describe the weather today. You can also talk about the weather on a particular trip, and perhaps during that particular trip, the weather was exactly like what it is today, right? And you can also talk about a trip in the future. And when you talk about it, the weather, the ideal weather, should be exactly as it is today. So essentially the same idea about weather in different contexts, right? And um, we have already tried applying some of the ideas in these topics. Okay, now for speaking part 3 here, this is something that I would recommend you to do. Essentially, you can ask yourself certain questions so that you can discuss certain points in a sample answer with more, in-depth analysis. And this is something that we do on Tuesday, during these summary classes. Like you write your summaries, and then I ask you to repeat a part of it, and then I ask for your opinion, on certain parts of that summary. Yeah. So you can do this, right? And for the sake of the test, certain examiners are very inquisitive, and they will bombard you with all kinds of questions halfway through, all of your answers. So you have to be, on your feet, thinking and responding, right? And I guess one key takeaway from this kind of exercise, well, there are 2 key takeaways actually. First of all, you need to rehearse, you need to repeat to make sure that you actually know how to say certain words, certain ideas, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, like, you have to learn to, like, come up with an organic answer with a high level of accuracy, right? For a lot of you, it's not either or, not both and. Like, for you guys, like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You either get fluency or accuracy, but that's band 6 and 6.5. If you ever want to get to band 7 and then 7.5, you have to be able to do both at the same time, right? Think of an organic answer, or an answer that makes sense, while also maintaining a high level of accuracy. And I guess the only way to do that is that, well, you have to rehearse with what you've got on a regular basis. Like, for instance, I'm gonna twist the knife further into your wound by saying this. Like, nobody has ever said howevers, right? But then, there are other mistakes as well. Like, no one has ever said sick as in number 6, right? But some of you still manage to miss out on the ending sound as you speak, or add random S's at the end, right? So that's why repetition is crucial. Okay, well then that's it for today then. Any question? That was an epic monologue, don't you think? Nhung, any question?
No.
Have you ever been in any class in which the teacher just randomly bombards you with like monologues like I do?
I think you did ask this question. And my answer
Oh,
is
yes.
yeah, my answer is
Your answer is?
yeah, no, not yet.
Okay. All right. Apparently, I'm starting to become like a one-trick pony, because I do realize that I tend to ask people the same question. Like when I talk to you, Yung, I always talk about the fact that, I do monologues. And then when I talk to Chang, I always ask about whether or not she has returned to work. Right? Okay. If there's no question, well then that's it for today. And in the next lesson, we're going to move on to a different group of topics. Okay. but leave this class bearing in mind that 10%, only 10% of what you were taught was actually mastered. That's some food for thought. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.